In this video, you're going to learn how to write chord progressions in the Dorian mode on your guitar. The Dorian mode is used in many songs. It's very common, it's a very cool sound, and it's the slightly brighter, slightly more optimistic sounding of the minor modes. Hi, this is Simon Candy from Acoustic Guitar Lessons Online.net, and in this video, you're going to learn how to write chord progressions on your guitar using the Dorian mode. First, we'll cover the Dorian mode in a general sense and just get a bit of a feel for what the Dorian mode is. Then we'll get stuck into some chord progressions and learn how to write chord progressions and recognize chord progressions that use the Dorian mode. We will then look at some actual excerpts from songs that are using the Dorian mode or are in the Dorian mode. It's a very, very common mode and it's used by many bands, many artists, including Carlos Santana. He uses it a lot, so do Pink Floyd, so do the Beatles, just to name a few. For an overview of modal chord progressions and perhaps a little bit more of a complete understanding of writing chord progressions that are modal, you can click the link in the top right corner of this video and that'll take you to another video on my channel that covers modal chord progressions in general, but it's not necessary to watch that first to understand what we're going to cover in today's video. So perhaps earmark that one or bookmark that one for later on. All right, let's get into it. So the Dorian mode. So I've got a video on the Dorian mode, more looking at playing solos and melodies and so forth in the Dorian mode on the channel. So I'll link to that in the top right corner of this video too, so you can check that out a little later on as well. But I'll give you a brief recap here for a bit of context, so then we can set up the focus that is chords and chord progressions of the Dorian mode today. So we're going to look at D Dorian. D Dorian is the second mode. Dorian is the second mode. D Dorian is the second mode of C major. And what that means is that it's got the same notes as C major. However, it is not C major, it's D Dorian, where the root, the tonic, the center of the key, where everything resolves is the D note, not the C note. When we do look at the Dorian mode and see the notes that are in the Dorian mode, we have a D, we have an E, we have an F, we have G, we have A, we have B, we have C, and of course D. Just playing it on a single string there, the easiest way to play the scale. Now, all natural notes. If we look at D Dorian, we can think of it, as I've already just said, as the second mode of C major. Or you can look at it as a minor scale with a flat 3 and a flat 7. Okay, so actually I said minor, a major scale with a flat 3 and a flat 7, therefore making it a minor sound. Okay, so if you look at, or if we have a look at the D major scale, we have the D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. Now if we flat the third and we flat the seventh, we get D, E, F, F sharp's being flatted to F, G, A, B, C, C sharp's being flatted to C, and the octave D. So we arrive at the same place, right? D Dorian, whether we take it as the, sort of view it as the second mode of C major, or we see it as a major scale, in this case D major, with a flat 3 and a flat 7. That's the way you can think of the Dorian mode, a couple of different ways, okay? Now the chords, the all-important chords. To understand a scale, you must understand the chords in a scale, or if you like, the harmony of the scale. So in D Dorian, we have D minor, okay? We have E minor, we have an F chord, we have a G chord, we have an A minor chord, we have a B half diminished chord, and back to D half diminished, sorry, and then our C, and then our D minor. Okay, I was missing a chord there. Now, there's a characteristic note in each mode, which basically by its name is, you can probably guess, is pretty important in distinguishing the sound of the mode. It's the heart of the sound of the particular mode that you're in. Okay, and the characteristic note in D Dorian is the B. Okay, what we sometimes call a raised sixth. Now, what does that mean? If we compare D Dorian to the D natural minor scale, have a look. D Dorian is D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. D natural minor is D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D. What's the difference between the natural minor and the Dorian? That's it, the B note, right? Which is a raised sixth compared to the natural minor. Okay, that note is very important. That's the difference between being just in D minor versus D Dorian, which is a minor sound, but as we'll discover, a little bit more of an optimistic sounding minor mode. Now, you might think that Okay, one note difference, B flat versus B. Okay, not a big deal, pretty similar. Yeah, but one note affects 3 chords in any key. Any one note in a key appears in 3 of the chords. So when you change one note, you're actually changing 3 chords when we refer to the harmony of the key. Okay, that's pretty big. That's almost half the chords are different. Okay, so if we have a look at D Dorian compared to D natural minor, and we compare the two in terms of the chords in the key, when we change that B note, it changes 3 chords. Both keys have D minor. However, in D natural minor, you have an E half diminished because of the B flat. In D Dorian, you have an E minor because it's a B natural note. That's in the chord. Okay, so there's a difference. Both keys have F. However, D Dorian has a G major chord. D natural minor has a G minor chord. Okay, quite different. Both have A minor. However, D Dorian has B half diminished. D natural minor has a B flat chord. Okay, so there's the third chord that's different. So the chords that are different both have the C, and then we're back on D minor. So the chords that are different are the 2 chord, E minor in D Dorian and E half diminished in D natural minor. The 4 chord, so it's a G major in D Dorian. That's why it's a bit of more of a brighter sound, as we'll see in a moment. And what is it? It's G minor in D natural minor. And then it's a B half diminished chord in D Dorian and a B flat major chord in the D natural minor. Okay, so one note difference affects 3 chords. Makes quite a difference. Okay, so that's the point I want to make there. So that's just a little bit of a foundation from which we're now going to have a look at some chord progressions in D Dorian. Okay, so chord progressions, just in a general sense in D Dorian, how do we write them? There's a couple of things you want to keep in mind when you write chord progressions in the Dorian mode, okay, in any mode for that matter, but we're specifically talking about Dorian. So first off is the root chord is D minor, the 1 chord, right? That's got to sound like home bass, okay, like everything's resolved to that. So a good tip to begin with is start on the D minor chord and make sure you feature the D minor chord so that your ear hears it as the 1 chord. Okay, so start on a D minor chord. It's not an absolute rule, but you're going to have a much harder time sort of making D minor feel and sound like the 1 chord if you don't begin on it. Okay, so you'll find most chords begin on the root chord of the key. Most chord progressions, I should say. The other thing is the characteristic notes. We've already determined that the characteristic note is B. That's the point of difference between D Dorian and D natural minor. If we didn't include that B note in any of the chords, then it's a bit ambiguous as to what actual key we're in. Are we in natural minor or are we in Dorian? So we want to feature chords. Doesn't have to be every chord, but we want to feature chords in the progression that use that characteristic note, which, as we've already well established now, is the B note in D Dorian. Okay, so for example, I could have a chord progression that goes D minor, C, and G. Okay, so again, D minor, the 1 chord, to our 7, C, and our G. 4 chord, and you can hear it resolve, and that sounds resolved, right? That feels like home bass. That's good, because we want that to be the case, because we are wanting to write a chord progression in D Dorian. That's one common chord progression in D Dorian. Now, the characteristic note B exists in the G chord. That's the point of difference. The D minor and the C, that's all part of the key, but they are also chords in D natural minor. So if I was just playing D minor C, we wouldn't really know yet. We wouldn't have enough information to know whether we're in the natural minor or the Dorian mode. But with that G chord having the B note, the characteristic note, we know it's D Dorian. And it's the slightly brighter, as I said earlier in the opening of this video, slightly brighter, slightly more optimistic minor mode. It's still a minor mode, but it's got a little bit of optimism to it, okay, if you like. And let's just kind of highlight that, because if it's the G chord here that gives it that little boost, right? If I played this same chord progression here in D natural minor, Okay, it's also, natural minor is also the Aeolian mode, but we'll refer to it as natural minor here. It would be D minor, as I was saying, and C, but it would be G minor. Okay, a little darker, a little sadder. Okay, again, you got D minor, you got C, and we got G minor. Why is it G minor? Because the B flat is in the D natural minor key, and the B flat is now making the G, when we harmonize it in the key, a minor chord. Speaking of the 1 and the 4 chord, that is a very common groove or vamp in the Dorian mode. Okay, so D minor and G. You often hear D minor and G. D minor and G. And quite often I'll make it like a D minor and a G7. Okay. Another one that's very similar, and another little 2-chord vamp, is D minor. And we'll make them 7s again here. So D minor 7 to E minor 7. Okay, or also known as the 1 to the 2 chord, simply because that's the role of each of those chords in our key. We've got the 1 chord, and we've got the 2 chord. Okay, another little vamp in D Dorian here. D minor. Okay, but of course, B minor feels resolved, because that's the key that we're in here, of course. Another thing you can do with modal chord progressions is to put a pedal tone in the bass, the root note, pedal the root or the tonic in the bass. So by that, I mean, when you're playing whatever chords you're playing in the progression, keep the D as the root, okay? Even if it's not part of the chord, although in this case, I think it's going to be, okay? But for example, I could have a D minor chord, and then I could move up. This could be interpreted as a D minor chord as well, but I'm going to treat that as a B half diminished with a D in the bass. Okay, so we've got D minor down here, and then we've got a B half diminished, but with the D still in the bass. So I'm pedaling that D on the D minor, and then when I come to B half diminished, I'll go to G as well. Okay, so I'm using a little D triad shape there as a G chord, but maintaining the D in the bass. So the common element that threads the whole chord progression is this D in the bass. So we've got D minor, D with the B, a B half diminished with D, back to D minor, and we've got half diminished, and that's a nice thing to pedal the tone, pedal the note. It really sets up the Dorian sound like that too. Okay, so some songs that use the Dorian mode. There are plenty of songs here. I'm just going to briefly give you a few here that you can explore if you like, and certainly help consolidate what we're talking about today. What's the first one we could have a look at? Mad World. Okay, Tears for Fears. There's also a very popular cover of this song by a guy called Gary Jules, I think it is. It's in E Dorian, this chord progression, and it's going to use an E minor chord. So the 1 chord of E Dorian is E minor. It's going to use a G, which is the 3 chord. D is the 7, and A is the 4 chord, okay, of E Dorian. And the characteristic note lives inside that A major chord. So of that chord progression, or E Dorian, first off, the characteristic note is the 6th note. So in E Dorian, it's C sharp. And the A chord of that chord progression is the chord that has the C sharp in it. So that's the determining chord, if you like, to distinguish whether we're in E natural minor, E minor, or E Dorian. Okay, and it's sort of got, this is like the melody with the chords. Something like that. And it's like a D. Okay, I'm not playing any specific arrangements here. I'm not even really playing an arrangement. It's really just on the fly, more or less, here. So don't be concerned about the detail of what I'm doing here. This is not a song. This is, sorry, not a tutorial about, Mad World and how to play it on guitar in a chord melody context. I'm just trying to give you some context to the song to just help consolidate the Dorian mode. There's also a little bridgey section in this song, which goes from E minor and to the A, back to E minor. Something like that, right? Etc. Now, just to make this point again, if we were playing in the natural minor here, E natural minor, that A chord, because the natural minor has a C, not a C sharp, that A chord becomes an A minor chord, and that would sound like this. Right? Sadder. Compared to the Dorian, right? Much more brighter, more bright, okay? Another one would be Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars, right? That whole song it's in D Dorian for a start, so the key that we've been looking at. And that whole song, I don't think it deviates from the little vamp, which is a D minor 7 and a G7. It's like, right? This one chord and the 4. Okay, so it's got a little bit of some sort of a little melody, sort of like like a, and then you've got like the chords, right? D minor, G7. Etc. Okay, just on the fly here, nothing special about the arrangement, but just trying to give you a bit of context with the melody and the chords. Another example is Moondance by Van Morrison. So this is part of this song. It's first off, it's in A Dorian, and it's using a 1 chord, A minor in A Dorian, to a 2 chord, B minor 7. Now the B minor 7 is a characteristic chord of the Dorian mode, in A Dorian in this case, because it contains the characteristic note. What is that in A Dorian? It's always the 6th note. That's what determines the sound. It's the heart of the Dorian sound is that raised 6th. So that raised 6th, F sharp, is in B minor. Why is it a raised 6th? Because if we look at A natural minor, it's got an F note in it. Here we've got F sharp. That's why. Okay, and this chord has it. So that is pretty important in this chord progression, in determining that we are in A Dorian, right? And in this tune, it goes into a chorus and so forth, but in the verses it's like a. Okay, that sort of thing, grooves on the 1 to the 2 chord, and then you've got like the melody in Moondance, or in the verse at least. Right, just to give you a little bit of context, and maybe if we can hack something together here, right, just including the chords there of A minor, B minor, A minor, and a B minor there, bit suspended sound, but B minor nonetheless, right? So that is also a song in Dorian, in this case the A Dorian mode. And one more perhaps we can just throw in here quickly. Evil Ways, Santana. So Santana uses Dorian mode a lot, and that song is more or less pretty much based on the 1 to 4 again. However, we're in G Dorian here, so the 1 chord in G Dorian is G minor, the 4 chord is F, the 4 chord is C. Why am I saying F? G minor to C. And C dominant in this case, but we could just say C major as well. Okay, it's just made into a dominant chord here, as the G minor is made into a minor 7. And we say the 4 chord has the characteristic note. What's the characteristic note in G Dorian? It's always the 6th note. What's the 6th note in G Dorian? E. Okay, in G natural minor it would be an E flat, and that E in the Dorian makes that C, what would otherwise be a minor, into the C major, in this case C dominant 7th. Okay, quite a difference. And you know, what's the melody in that song? Okay, that sort of thing, right? That bossa nova Latin. I'm not going to sing for you, okay, because I can't. If you like this video, then you'll love this free ebook I've created for you in my Jazz Concepts for Acoustic Guitar series, simply titled Block Chords. In this ebook, you learn the 3 main block chord types for your guitar playing and how to create great music with them. I also show you how to best visualize these shapes on your guitar so you never forget them. It's as easy as changing one single note in each block chord shape. You also learn a system for easily relating the block chord shapes to each other all over the fretboard so you can play any chord you like in any position with ease. So click the link below in the description of this video and download your free copy of the ebook audio Jazz Concepts for Acoustic Guitar Block Chords. Let me know in the comment section what acoustic guitar topics you would like to see covered in future videos. Let me know about the Dorian mode, other songs you might recognize as being in the Dorian mode, and perhaps ways you like to access the Dorian mode yourself. If you like this video, then don't forget to hit that like button, and of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and you know what I'm going to say, hit the all-important notification bell button, because then YouTube can tell you once I've released a new video. This is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net. As always, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. I hope you've got something from it for your guitar playing with the Dorian mode, and I very much look forward to seeing you in the next video.